Welcome back to Horns High Studios for another episode of 666 Seconds of Metal. I'm here with Shane from Winnipeg. How's it going, Shane?
What's up, Pete? You know what? We're just over a little bit more snow, so fuck. I hope this is it. It's supposed to be warm next week. I'm done with this.
I'm sure. It's been pretty decent here. I can't complain, but it was a little cold, but not too bad. But we're going to do some dissection tonight. We're going to dissect a classic, and this is a classic of classics, in my opinion.
Hell yeah.
I'm talking Rain and Blood from Slayer. I mean, that is just an epic album, just such a milestone in the genre. Absolutely loved it when I first heard it. I still love it today.
Hell yeah.
So we talked about doing these dissecting a classic, and this was definitely one on the list. So
it almost seems wrong to be even just saying Slayer like at a low voice like this, because usually you're just screaming it, fucking Slayer.
Right, exactly, exactly. So definitely a legendary thrash album. No metalhead watching this doesn't know who Slayer is. I mean, seriously, they are legends when it comes to the earliest days of that thrash metal scene here in the United States. Now, as a young metalhead, I was totally into them when I first heard Show No Mercy, and each one that came out, I was digging it. Loved Hell Awaits. And there was a time later in their career where I got kind of played out on Slayer, just kind of not anything new, just kind of regurgitating the same stuff, I felt. And then I did like the last couple they did. So, I mean, there was just a period where I thought they were just kind of lukewarm to me.
Yeah. I would agree with that, yeah.
But I mean, they had a prolific career, and you're not going to have every album isn't going to be a Rain and Blood, obviously.
No, not after that. It's like
that's a tough act to
that's setting the bar pretty high for yourself.
Right. Now, as a bass player, singer myself, Tom Araya was a huge influence on me in those early days in the mid-'80s when I first started playing. And coming off Hell Awaits, I mean, Slayer just completely shocked everybody with Rain and Blood in 1986, which was
they did.
great time for metal. I mean, I'm so happy you and I both, we're close in age and that we were there when that was going on. And I almost feel bad for like the young bands I would meet when I was playing in Low 12, because I'm like, they just don't understand. They weren't there when this shit was starting, and it was such an amazing time, to be into metal. And, it was a shocker to most of us that they picked this unknown Rick Rubin, who none of us knew who the hell that guy was, and to produce it on a rap label, which was Def Jam Recordings.
No shit, That was very crazy. And on Def Jam, too, we had Public Enemy was on Def Jam, and
right.
So, yeah, that was just an odd choice. And I don't know if you've heard the song that Public Enemy does, Channel Zero, but they use an Angel of Death sample in there, too. And, I'm guessing that's how they got that sample, was through Rick Rubin.
Probably. That's funny.
Yeah, just a great song, though.
Yeah, and the way the song starts out, or the album starts out with Angel of Death, I mean, that scream from Araya was just so wicked. And I read today that Jeff Hanneman was the one who suggested he do the scream, and he tried like 3, and he went with the first one. So the one you hear was a first take scream on it. which is cool. That real high shrill. But this album is only 29 minutes long, but my God, they make good use out of every second of that album. It's just breakneck speed, just killer.
And everybody makes fun of the length of that album, and I don't think it's really that warranted, because you look at albums nowadays, a lot of them are only 30, 35, 40 minutes long. So it's
a good point.
I don't think it's really warranted nowadays.
Yeah, I know back in the vinyl days, I had a recording engineer tell me any longer than 45 minutes, they had to make the grooves tighter, and then that would reduce the quality of
the yeah.
So they had to keep them under 45 minutes back in the day. But it was recorded in L.A., which is no surprise. That's where they're from. January to March, so pretty quick, 1986. And then they released it just a few months later in October. 2017, Rolling Stone magazine ranked it number 6 on a list of the greatest metal albums of all time. And it was certified gold in 1992. So at the time, it definitely kind of defined this emerging underground metal scene. And again, you and I were both there in spirit.
Yeah.
You were in Canada.
Yeah, that was like the start of the Big Four, and Slayer really stood out to me. Anyways, they were always the heaviest, and they were pretty much my gateway drug to death metal.
Yeah, for sure, I agree. Now, I read that the band hated the cover when it was first done by artist Larry Carroll, but the label kind of forced them to use it because they had some ideas that they weren't going to let fly. And then, ironically, he would end up doing the covers for South of Heaven, Seasons in the Abyss, and Christ Illusion. So apparently they learned to like him or just dealt with it. I don't know. But at the time, they were listening to Metallica and Megadeth, and they were tired of the repetition of riffs, which I've always had that beef with Metallica. It's like they got some cool riffs, but they play them to death, and Slayer didn't want to do that. So they kind of came up with this kind of crazy, shorter format songs, quick, more punk influence.
That's what I was going to say, and they obviously like the punk stuff. They've done punk covers before, so.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely very punk influenced. But Columbia Records was a distributor for Def Jam at the time, and they had major issues with Angel of Death, obviously with the Nazi references and Joseph Mengele. And, that stigma would follow them throughout their whole career, was that whole Nazi
which was
worship
just
crap.
Bullshit. I mean, it's like saying, it's more like a documentary, really. It's like saying the History Channel is a Nazi channel or something.
That's true. I mean, but they didn't do themselves any favor. Their fan club was the Slatanic Wehrmacht.
Very true.
I was a member of it. I had a shirt that said that on there. Yeah, so it's like they kind of, I guess they just figured, fuck it, we might as well embrace it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, they definitely didn't do themselves any favors. They've had, a number of bands cover their material. I mean, I saw just a few: Malevolent Creation, Body Count, Vader. I mean, there was quite a few in that list of bands that did covers of their songs and stuff.
And plus, they've been in media too, like different movies. Like, who could forget the classic Gremlins 2 when the Gremlin boss is changing into the big spider monster? Yeah, and that was always a great scene for me.
Yeah, definitely. But the 10 songs on Rain and Blood, I mean, they're among Slayer classics: Angel of Death, Raining Blood, Postmortem. I mean, just amazing. And I don't know how many times I've listened to this album, but it's got to be 666 or so. So I've
there's countless times. I wouldn't even want to make a guess.
Yeah, so the classic lineup. I mean, this lineup: Kerry King, Jeff Hanneman, Tom Araya, and Dave Lombardo. I mean, they've had other capable musicians. I mean, Gary Holt, Paul Bostaph. I mean, Jeff Hanneman, of course, is gone from, he died in 2013. And they've had a serious falling out with Dave Lombardo after he rejoined the band over some financial issues, which is always shitty. But man, that core lineup, the one we're looking at right now, I mean, that to me, that's Slayer. That's the best lineup they ever had to me. It's just, you can't replace that kind of continuity, that charisma that they brought as a group at that time with those musicians. Just amazing.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
I mean, And, you know, despite those things, I mean, that happened after the album, I think any fan of thrash would say that Rain and Blood, you know, is definitely among the best. Blistering fast solos, you know, just the frenzied drumming and the best hooks in heavy music that I could think of. I mean, just very memorable choruses. I mean, love the way they wrote songs. I mean, just so good.
Oh, yeah. You know, I actually get a visceral reaction to many songs on this album, Angel of Death, and the hair on my arms will stand up, and I'll get goosebumps, you know, even to this day. So, yeah. It's a great album, and
it's a good one.
One of my guilty pleasures is actually watching reaction videos to Rain and Blood or Angel of Death, and seeing how new people react to it, like rappers or whatnot, and seeing how they react to it, because everybody, even to this day, they'll hear that for the first time, and they're still blown away.
Definitely. All right, well, go back and listen to some Angel of Death and some Slayer. Rain and Blood, just a great album. So we'll see you guys next time on 666 Seconds of Metal.
Born High.